Welcome, everyone, to episode 10 of the Growth and Gratitude podcast. I am so excited to welcome our guest today, Gina Covarrubias. Gina, did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yes, you did. Perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you
Bridget.
so much. Welcome, and thank you so much for being here for this very important conversation.
I'm so thrilled to be here. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You are such a blessing in my life and in so many people's lives. So we're going to show people why that's true and help them get to know you. And I've been so looking forward to this conversation.
Me too. Thank you.
Yes. And as you know, we always start with gratitude on the podcast because there are so many studies that teach us, and we know from our personal experience that when we try to stay in a state of gratitude and spend a little time each day focusing on the things we're grateful for, it really can help us shift into a more positive, proactive frame of mind. So Gina, would you be willing to share 3 things that you're grateful for today?
Absolutely. Number one, Bridget, the people in my life. My family, my friends, including you. I'm so grateful that we got to meet and that our paths crossed each other. Number two, I'm really grateful for technology because you and I get to work from home. And I didn't have to jump on an airplane and meet you in person to do this interview. It's fantastic. I'm really grateful for that. And probably the most important thing, I would say number 3, I'm grateful for my health. I am healthy. I'm not sick. I feel great. I'm able to do the things that I want to do. Very grateful for that.
Oh, Gina, that's beautiful. Thank you. I'm already wanting to go off in a whole different direction to talk about all the things you're grateful for, but we'll stay focused. I'm so honored and proud to be on your list and be among the friends and family who you appreciate, because I feel exactly the same way about you. And I want to move on from your beautiful gratitude to share how we know each other, because it's very special. And it is funny every time we see each other that I literally forget that we've never met in person. It doesn't feel that way to me.
Doesn't to me either.
I mean, if you said to me right now, no, Bridget, remember we saw each other, I'd go, oh, maybe we did, because I just feel so connected to you. And I am so grateful to technology for that. So you and I started the Life Coach School certification program way back in 2018. We were students getting certified as life coaches. Yes. And we had our wonderful, lovely cohort of women who we are still in touch with, who we're meeting with this week. So I think we are a beautiful example of your point about technology, but also the support network that's so important, and social network and professional networks, that we just all truly love each other so much that we continue to stay connected and get together these 4+ years later with the, I think, 10 women. It's not everybody comes to every meeting, but we're all connected and we adore each other and we support each other in our ongoing work and our personal lives. So I thank you also for being the glue who keeps us together, because you actually schedule those meetings with our wonderful alumni group that got certified together in our very small, intimate group that met regularly. So thank you for that, Gina.
Oh, of course. It's my privilege. And I love catching up with everybody. Love staying in touch. What a great group of 10 women that came together and went through this cohort together. It was an amazing time.
It really was. And I continue to learn from all of you. And you and I took that connection even further, and we work together now, which is incredibly exciting and rewarding. And I never would have dreamed way back when we were all nervous about doing our demo coaching and getting all our coaching hours in. It was an incredibly rigorous program, people. We recommend it, but whoo, if you sign up, make sure you are ready to work. So in the midst of all that, who could have imagined that these 4 years later, I'd be saying, Gina, we have so much coaching work. Would you please be so gracious as to help us out and be a coach for Samson Coaching and Consulting? Which you, in addition to, of course, having your own very rich and thriving consulting and coaching business and speaking business, you've been willing to come on and help serve our clients as an independent coach. And I'm so grateful to you for that. And our clients love you. I've told you how they rave about you, and I'm just so grateful to you for that.
Nice. That's so nice of you to say that. Who would have thought 4 years ago we would have been in this position, Bridget? Not me. And
Me
I
either.
love every minute of it. I love every minute. So thank you for having me. Really
Oh,
appreciate
my
it.
pleasure. Okay, so here's the part. We're going to get to the content, folks. We could just gush about each other, but that's okay. Let people hear what it's like when there's genuine love and support and appreciation and
right.
connection personally and professionally. I always think it's great to model that, but I will move into some of the professional pieces and just preview that we are going to talk about being overly emotionally attached to your career and how detrimental that is, and some outstanding tips. Gina has such great expertise on this from her personal experience, from her training, from her research, and the coaching work that she does. So that's what we'll talk about. And it's so important. And I'm really looking forward to learning more from you about this, Gina. But before we do that, I want to introduce Gina professionally. It's a little intimidating to me at times because, oh my goodness, she has such an extensive background, or bachelor's and master's degree in engineering. So we could not possibly come from more different educational backgrounds. My master's is in communication. You have all this incredibly impressive technical education as an engineer, and then 12 plus years of work experience in the engineering field, government, academia, private sector, just doing all sorts of incredibly important work as an engineer and a leader in your field. And then here's where it just blows me away. You set all that aside, or maybe not, maybe set that aside isn't the right way to put it, but you completely shifted your career into becoming an engineering life coach and to doing coaching full time, where you support people in the technical field. And I have to say, people who are not in the technical field, you can coach anybody, because our clients aren't all in technical work. Many of them are, and you can coach anybody, but really helping people to figure out if they're happy in their career, what they can do to change their career to feel better, or if they need a career shift that they never imagined they might make. I mean, it's such important work in the world as people are struggling. So that's not even your bio. You gave me a bio, but that just came from my mind. But let me do the official bio, and then I'll see if you want to add anything. So Gina is a graduate of Aerospace Engineering from Purdue University. She worked as an engineer for many years. Okay, I did get most of it right. She left engineering to start an exclusive STEM coaching and speaking service. And she's an incredible speaker. I've seen her speak. She'll blow you away. I have also been the recipient of her coaching because we were coach partners during our training program. So she coached me many times, helped me tremendously. Her mission is to teach technical professionals how to defeat painful career challenges, propelling them from status quo to excellence. And I've seen her do that many times, and she's helped me to do that as well. As a former engineer, she identifies with technical experts who question their professional purpose. So it's not that she's going to tell you to leave your career. Unless that is what you want to do, she's going to help you figure that out. But she can also help you to find much more meaning and purpose and satisfaction and a lot less stress, even if you choose to stay in your career in the technical field or as an engineer. She'll just help you figure out what's right for you. And before we end, we're going to make sure you know how to find her at the end. Listen all the way through, please, and also look at the show notes and the description, because we're going to give you all the ways to find her on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and her website, all of that contact info. Did I leave anything out from your bio, Gina?
Thank you, Bridget. That was wonderful. Thank you. You hit the nail on the head. Thank you for that.
Okay, great. Well, then let's dive in with the first question. So we really want to start talking about being overly emotionally attached to your career and how harmful that can be and how we can avoid doing that. A lot of people get really, really stressed about their career and need to kind of have that separation, that balance. But as we lead into that, I would love to hear about can we hear a little about your career trajectory, a little more than what I shared? And how did you find yourself in a place where you realized that you needed to make a complete shift in your career? Were you at that place of over attachment and stress, or what happened for you? And how did you make that huge shift in your career?
Wow, that was a huge shift. And in a very quick nutshell, on the surface, I found myself during my professional years working many different jobs as an engineer. I tried many different things, which I had the privilege of doing. I kind of always found myself feeling like a fish out of water. And I found myself floundering. And I was always looking for that right job, for that dream job. And the more I looked, the more I couldn't find it. And the more desperate I became, the more disappointed I became, the more I blamed myself. And sometimes I would go through these phases of, I must have gotten the wrong degree. I must be in the wrong industry. I must have the wrong job. I must be working for the wrong employer. I need to go back to school and get another degree. So there was this cycle of self-blame because I had this expectation that there was a dream job waiting for me. And the more I couldn't find it, the more I suffered. And so to get to the second part of your question, what was it that made me realize it's time for a change? Becoming an aerospace engineer was my dream as a child. And when I got to become this aerospace engineer and I started feeling like a fish out of water, and I started kind of wondering, like, well, where's my happiness here? Like, what did I do wrong? I did all the things I was supposed to do. Where's this happiness? And when that didn't happen, I decided at some point, and this was not an overnight decision, it took me several months to think about this, but I decided I'm ready to make a different dream come true. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what that means for me, but I just know that this world that I'm working in and living in is not my world. It's not for me anymore. So I had a very strong conviction about it, and I was very much at peace, even though I didn't have a job lined up, even though I knew I was going to live off my savings and see where it took me. That was a big risk.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
And
that
you
is
did it.
what I did. I left at the time, I thought I was leaving my education and my experience behind, ready to start something new. But it turns out that I'm using all of that education and experience anyway.
Yes.
So it's a wonderful thing.
Yes. And I think that's something that can really give people hope and can inspire people that your skills are always transferable in some way. That you're an engineering life coach, which I can't imagine how you could be if you didn't have all that experience. That you bring so much to the table to support people who may be in a similar position as you were.
Exactly,
Right?
exactly. And when I think about all the good times and the hard times that I had throughout my engineering profession, I needed to go through all of that in order to do what I'm doing today and help people the way I help them today.
Yeah. Yeah. This is not in our questions, but you said I could go completely off in a different direction. I'm wondering if, because the name of your company is Deliberate Doing, which I love. That's correct. Did I get it right?
Yes, you did.
And everything you just shared really brought to life why that company name is so powerful and profound for you, because it's about being really deliberate about everything we do, and particularly what we choose to do in our career. Is that right?
Thank you for pointing that out, Bridget. What a powerful way to state that. You're absolutely correct. And I could tell you, thinking back, one of the biggest mistakes I made in my engineering profession, which didn't help my cause, is that I wasn't deliberate enough. I just kind of wanted to sit back and do my thing and see what happens. And I wasn't taking ownership over my own professional development, my personal development. I just left it in everyone else's hands. Not a good idea.
Well, I think a lot of people do that. And I know that's why you do a lot of, in your speaking, you share that and you talk about those choices. And I know you often speak to young folks as well as, I mean, people of all ages, but I know you also have a particular passion for speaking to younger folks, as I do as well, because maybe they can learn about how to be more deliberate and intentional about the choices they make for their future. But to your point, we can make a change at any time. And since you took us down this path, I'm interested to contrast it with, because I know you work with a lot of engineers and people in the technical field and in other fields who end up deciding to stay in their career, but maybe shift their mindset or shift the way they're doing the work they're doing, or find a new project or a new type of engineering. I don't even know the lingo, but you're not saying, okay, you have to change everything and leave your career, but sometimes it's a mindset shift that's what people need. Is that what you find sometimes as well?
Absolutely, that is what I find as well. And again, another great point that you're bringing up here, and I made this mistake too. I, as an unhappy professional, looked to my job and I saw all the things that are going wrong, and I blamed my job. I blamed my career. I blamed myself for things that were actually kind of being caused by myself. And what a lot of people do is we set ourselves up to be disappointed like that. And we could talk about that all day long, but that's what I see over and over and over from all of the professionals that I coach over the course of the last 4.5 years. They blame something else because that's the easy thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I help them understand, you can actually change some of your mindset. There are things you can do to strengthen the muscles up here. It changes everything, and it opens up doors and opportunities and brings them a life that they never even knew could be possible.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's get, I'm thinking if I were listening, I'd be curious about specifics. Let's get a little specific here. It's because we both coach people every day. So we're hearing all the stories, the specific stories, without naming anyone or giving anything away, of how this happens. And what we're talking about, what you really have brought us into beautifully, is the over attachment to career. So people thinking their career is their identity. That's one thing that we see a lot. People thinking that their career should always be fulfilling and be easy. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard people, I'm just going to go to Starbucks and be a barista. It's like, no, maybe that's not easy either. Having this mindset that it should be easier, it should be more fulfilling. My manager should be this way and that way, and having all these expectations of other people to do things the way we do them, and we get so upset when they don't. And also people making choices and convincing themselves that they must do it this way. I must work all weekend. Really, what would happen if you didn't? What would happen if you all these things that you think you have to do over the weekend, if you just left them to Monday and did them during working hours? Like, would the world fall apart? Would the earth stop spinning? So, and I don't mean to say that, I know people have a lot on their plate, and we have so much empathy for that, Gina. I know we do, and we don't invalidate that and minimize that. And yet at the same time, I'm sure you have as well. I've had many conversations where people, once they're in that moment of reflection, can realize, maybe I'm doing some of this to myself. Maybe I'm being so hard on myself and expecting way too much of myself. And when you ask your clients sometimes, well, wait, did your manager say you need to have that done? Does that need to be perfect? Do you need to? No, but I should. Those, so these are some of the specifics that come to mind for me. And I'm wondering what else comes to mind for you, and in terms of how, I guess, to put it bluntly, how people sometimes trip themselves up and cause their own suffering. Although we are not denying that things can be very difficult and challenging, and there can be expectations that are just unrealistic coming from our leadership and our organization. What we focus on is helping people see where they do have control. So what do you see in terms of some of those specifics of why people are unhappy? Why are they so stressed out?
What a great question. What I see off the top of my head, Bridget, is that we in our society have in general been brought up from the time we're toddlers. We've been brought up with certain beliefs. We've kind of been groomed in a way. And part of this grooming involves believing that productivity is a good thing. Getting awards, getting a lot of money, prestige, like those are all good things that we're supposed to be striving for. And we look at different marketing messages and we listen to what schools are saying about their programs. It's all about reputation. And so without even knowing it, we grow up thinking that we're supposed to be the best, we're supposed to be productive, we're supposed to be accomplished. And that kind of misses the point of working. And when we're striving for these accomplishments and this prestige and whatever it is we're trying to chase, we're kind of setting ourselves up, in addition to missing the whole purpose of work. And by setting ourselves up, we become emotionally attached to our job outcomes. Meaning, if we don't get what we expect, such as a promotion because we worked our rear ends off for a year straight, and we expect to be compensated for that. And when we're not, then it's like we're just devastated. When we're laid off without expectation, we're devastated and we panic. And so thinking back to having to please all of your teachers when you grew up, having to please your parents, you better please your boss, you better please your professors, and on and on and on. We could take that into our adult lives, into the workplace, and want to please everybody, and we're just burning the candle at both ends. That's not what work is really about. It's more about self-development and overcoming challenges.
Yes.
To grow yourself personally and professionally, just so you can go out there and do it all over again. But we kind of miss that.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. And I've experienced that myself, as well as see it with most of my clients. And it's really challenging sometimes to help people see that. But I think more and more people are willing to see that. I think that the message that we're sharing here is becoming a little bit more palatable in the public as we see numbers of health disorders and mental health challenges and just rising to a really concerning level. And so much of it is tied to that ability to process stress and difficulty, and to not be so tied to having things, wanting things to be perfect and wanting to be perfect and wanting to please everyone at work and at home. So I think what you're sharing is so critical, and it's for our emotional health, our mental health, our physical well-being, not just our professional success. They're all tied together, and we're seeing that more than ever now. So I think this is really important. And so I'm wondering if we could share some tips for folks for how to work with this. And if I'm someone who's listening and I recognize, yeah, I'm probably overly attached to my career, I'm probably burning that candle at both ends, I need to figure out some strategies, some tools, some ways that I can scale it back and find more balance, find more joy, find more peace in my life and my work, and not make everything about work and having to succeed at this unrealistic level. What are any thoughts? And I have some thoughts too, but I'll ask you first. I want to hear yours.
I'm interested in hearing yours.
Yeah, but I want to hear, let's talk about
great
tools,
question.
tips.
The first thing I would say, and we are not taught in general, I would say we're not taught how to do this in our society. We're taught how to go for accomplishments and how to get that degree, which is fine. What we're not taught is how to set boundaries and how to advocate for ourselves, to our employer, to our boss. We're not taught that we are actually responsible for setting our own boundaries. And that might mean saying no to people and to the boss. And that is okay. Like, we need to learn how to start saying, no, I've got too much already, or I can do that, but I'm going to give up this over here. So number one, setting boundaries.
Yeah.
Number two, I would ask people to think about how much of what I want out of my career is external. Am I working because I really want that money? I really want that extra promotion. Am I busting my rear end to no end because I want to set myself up for that next job? And if you are, I'm not saying that isn't okay. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. But what I would suggest is to balance it with internal motivation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Meaning, people see what you do and what you accomplish on the surface. But let's forget about people. Let's just think about you. If you look internally and you ask yourself, what did I accomplish for myself today? What did I learn today? What kind of knowledge did I gain today? What obstacle did I beat? today?
Mm-hmm.
How was I able to rise above in this difficult situation? Those are the internals that we tend to
Mm-hmm.
not celebrate or
Mm-hmm.
recognize.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be my second tip, is to
Mm-hmm.
focus more of your energy internally
Mm-hmm.
on your own personal wins and celebrations that other people aren't going to see, frankly. And it's harder to do. It's harder to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Those are outstanding tips. I need to hear those. I need to be reminded of those regularly. I really do. I think we
We
all
all
do.
do.
They're so important. And I think one thing I take from what you're saying is a lot of it is really, again, being intentional, being deliberate, really looking inside ourselves and doing that self-reflection about what's really important to me, what's really meaningful to me. When I ask clients to think about what are their real core values, what really matters to them, it's often not about those external things that you talked about, but it's so easy to get caught up in the fray of that and to be competitive. I mean, people, especially in tech, it can be so competitive, and this one got the promotion and I didn't get it. But what's really important to you? Can you look at, to your point, Gina, about what did you overcome? A lot of my clients will talk about, well, I feel really good when I'm helping and supporting colleagues. People feel better about a team project where they were able to mentor someone and help someone build new skills and develop than getting a promotion necessarily. It's not always those external awards and rewards and achievements that are so motivating. So really to get quiet and get clear on what really matters to you and how can you meet those needs yourself, and how can you look at how you're already doing those things. You're not so often not so far off from this ridiculous bar that you set for yourself. You're not so far off from actually being able to look at some really amazing accomplishments and achievements that you can be very proud of. So I also think it's important for people to really pay attention to social support and make sure that you're in networks of people who you can talk to about your goals and what's going on. Coaching is another tip tool. All the podcasts out there, all the talks. I mean, you and I have tons of free webinars and talks on YouTube and podcast interviews that we've done. There's so much rich content out there that helps us stay centered and grounded and not get so pulled by the wind into all of these desires that really make us confused about what actually matters to us.
Yes, yes. And I love how you mentioned core values. I love doing that exercise with anyone that I'm coaching. Most people have never thought about what their core values are, and they're just kind of like out there grasping for things, but they don't really have an idea. They haven't articulated what's meaningful, what really resonates with you.
Exactly.
And I think that's such an important exercise. So I'm glad that you brought that up. And what that could lead to your point, is teaching people how to think for themselves, helping them understand you don't have to conform. You can if you want to. If that works for you, that's great. But be your own thinker.
Yes. And I love also what you said about saying no. I just want to reinforce that because I think we all need to hear that over and over and over. And yes, even saying no to your boss. I can't tell you how many people I've worked with who are managers who say, boy, I wish this person would have just been honest with me about how maxed out they were instead of saying yes and then not being able to deliver. We all need to be a little bit more honest.
Absolutely, absolutely. But some employees are terrified. They're just, they don't see that it's possible.
Right. So I think it's important on all ends for communication to be open, and for those who manage, especially, to make the effort to say, hey, be honest about your capacity, about where you are. We don't want anybody burning out. And I hear so many stories, I'm sure you do too, about people having to go out on leave because they're just so burned out. And is terrible for the person and for the team and everyone involved. We don't want to let things get to that point. And that's where coaching is proven. I mean, there are so many studies and statistics now that show that exactly the kind of coaching that you and I do, Gina, reduces those statistics dramatically of turnover and people leaving their jobs and people having to go out on medical leave and stress leave and people not being able to meet their obligations and deliver because there's just too much. So coaching really helps you get a sense of how to manage all of that and how to communicate about all of that. So let me ask you that. as a coach, is there anything we haven't talked about that you can help us see and gain some insight into? What is Gina like as a coach? I know because you've coached me and I love your coaching, and I always end up with some huge aha when we do coaching together. But what would you say for someone who has no idea what it's like to coach with you, what they might expect?
What they could expect are a lot of questions that I would ask them. And it's not so much because I'm interested in hearing what's going through their mind, although that is part of it. But what's more important is for them to articulate answers verbally to a person they are not going to be judged by. So it is a judgment-free zone. I'm not a coach. I'm not the kind of coach that offers advice or tells people what I think they should do. It's a lot of Q&A, 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 so that the person, whoever it is I'm coaching, the coachee, can come to understand themselves better and do some self-reflecting much better than if I were not there. So I'm simply a guide, and I don't have a script. I don't have a list of specific questions because everybody's different, to be honest. So based on the answer, I will ask the next question. Based on that answer, I'll ask the next question, and so on. And people find that very helpful.
Yes.
Because let's face it, Bridget, our friends, our family, our mentors, our sponsors, they mean well. They really want us to succeed, right?
Yes.
But sometimes we can get inundated with other people's opinions and other people's suggestions. And what ends up happening is that could overwhelm us instead of helping, which is the whole point. Whereas with coaching, you don't have to worry about the overwhelm. You're not going to get another opinion. It's just about, let me talk through what's going on in my mind. And that seems to clear up so many things for so many people.
Oh,
and
yes.
they find it very helpful, very helpful.
Yeah. And that, by the way, you're being very humble about it, Gina, because that's actually coaching. That is what coaching is supposed to be. And what most people don't realize about coaching and think that they're coaching when they're giving advice. And I just want to ask people out there, like, how many times, let's be honest, have you gone to someone to try to talk something through and they just immediately tell you, oh, well, you just need to go and do this. And you know that's not right for you, and you want them to hear you out, and the situation is more complicated. So what Gina's describing is really true coaching, and what true coaching is supposed to be about. And what she's saying so humbly, I can say as a recipient, she does with so much skill. She is such a deep listener. So when you answer that question, she's really going to process what you've said, as she said, with no judgment, no attachment to it going one way or the other. And she's going to think of the next very best question that's going to help you keep digging deeper and deeper to ultimately help you figure out what you want to do about it, if anything.
And that is so important, Bridget, that last part that you mentioned, people figuring out their own solutions, people working through their own problems to bring themselves to their own conclusions, because that's when conviction happens.
Yes.
That's when people become convicted. Okay, I know this answer is right for me. I know it's this. I know that's what I need to do because I thought through it myself, not because A, B, or C person told me to do it.
Exactly. Exactly.
Such a big difference. Such a big difference.
And the value, we really can't overstate the value of having someone like you or me to sit there and to truly be holding the space for you. That's a term in our certification program, that it's not just listening. There's something much deeper about truly holding the space with no judgment, with no agenda, without getting emotionally involved. People can cry, but we're not gonna, and we can hold the space for whatever emotions come up, but we're not going to get dragged into any kind of story or self-defeating talk or blame. It's like, no, okay, let's focus on you and what you're thinking, how you can gain more insight into it, what's going to be best for you, which might be totally different than someone else's path. And so it's a really beautiful, as someone who has been coached by many people many times, I think that a lot of times people don't understand what a unique kind of approach it is and how powerful it is in helping us to really get to where we need to be in a way that is incredibly difficult to do on our own, or as you said,
Mm-hmm.
by just going to people who are just going to give us advice based on their own biases and their own experiences, which may have nothing to do with us.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And what ends up happening with the type of coaching that you and I both do, Bridget, because let's be honest, not all coaching is distributed equally, right?
No.
You and I know that. But with the type of coaching you and I do, we enable people to become their own independent thinkers.
Yes.
That is what ends up happening.
Yes. Exactly. Exactly.
And it's liberating and it's freeing, and they become
Yeah.
much more deliberate about their decisions.
Yes. And it's so funny how sometimes people are nervous about going into coaching when they haven't done coaching before, right? And then after a few sessions, they're like, this is amazing. I had no idea. And I'm not just saying, I know it sounds like I'm bragging, but it is one of the most rewarding parts of what we do because I know the clients that you've worked with for my company, you're still working with because they want to keep coming back. You realize that it's also a never ending process. Life was always going to give us more and more to work with. Right. And more than we need to talk through. So it's really rewarding to see people have that shift and to have those aha moments where they realize, oh, okay, this is what I needed. So anyway, enough of our sales pitch for coaching. I truly hope that more people get to work with you, whether it's through my company, through your company, who listen to this podcast, because it's just such a gift. It's a beautiful experience to have. But I want to ask you about one more thing. I try to keep these short, but I can't help it. We're going to go a little bit longer. Is that okay, Gina?
Absolutely.
I'm dying to ask you about what it was like for you and any insights you have about being a woman in a very male-dominated field, because I have been lucky to work with quite a number of women who are engineers and managers in the engineering world, and unique concerns there and some expectations, maybe different expectations. What are your thoughts about that and how people can manage those kinds of situations?
I will share what worked for me as a very young female, early 20s, mid 20s, early 30s, whether I was in the classroom or in the workplace. If I found myself to be the only female or one of the only females in a setting, I would look around and I would think, I'm so privileged to be here. I am one of the few women, or I'm the only woman in the room. How cool is that? I get to represent women. And guess what? If I speak up and I say something, they're going to remember that. So I actually kind of saw it as advantageous. And I used that to my, I guess I would say, in a sense, it was to my advantage, but it was also, that kind of mindset was very helpful for me. And I don't want to mislead and to make anyone think I used my female features to try to pull one over on people, because that was not me at all. I was there to get a job done just like everybody else was. So to me, seeing gender inequalities, it wasn't at the forefront of my mind. But when I did notice it, I kind of gave myself a pat on the back, and I would think, I'm a badass. Like, I'm the only woman here. Like, there could be any number of other women, but it's just me. Like, that's pretty darn cool.
Yeah. That's so powerful, Gina. And I thank you for sharing that. And I just want to say, we recognize there are inequities and not everybody's treated. There's so many ways that people are not always treated fairly, of course. And bias is there. But I think as much as we can help people to develop the kind of attitude that you're talking about, it's not in denial of any kind of injustice or different treatment, but how could it ever hurt to help someone try to build that kind of attitude? To say, well, I am going to be a representative. I'm going to show what all women are capable of by speaking up, by sharing my ideas, by not being intimidated and quieted by the very real possibility that I may not be heard or I may not be taken as seriously. I'm going to actually be the one to break through the glass ceiling or whatever it may be. I just think it's both. Like, we need to recognize the challenges that are there, and then we need to help ourselves and others to say, I'm going to believe in myself. I'm going to speak up. I am going to show my value, and therefore probably change people's biases. Well, hopefully, in some cases, I will change those potential biases that are embedded in people's brains that they might not even be aware of. I think that's excellent advice, and you get to give it because you've lived it. In the field of communication, you got a lot of women, so I can't really relate on a personal level. I can only imagine, and I've heard lots of stories, as I said, from women who I've coached, and I think your advice is outstanding. And
I'm not going to sit here and say, Bridget, that I was never intimidated, I was never fearful, or that I didn't feel like I was smart enough sometimes. Like, that all happened, trust me. But I didn't let it stop me.
Right. Because we know it's so hard to remember that the external world, there is tragedy, there is injustice, what we can always work to manage is our own mind and our own actions. And I'm not saying to let people walk on us or to let injustice pass, but the kind of thing Gina's talking about is taking the power where you can, where you have it, and using that power.
Yes.
To your maximum potential.
I think a good way to sum it up, Bridget, is that if you're different in any way, shape, or form, use that to your advantage. Like, there's something there that you can do with your uniqueness. Maybe there's a reason you're in the place where you are.
Exactly. And it's a tough conversation sometimes, because I don't want people to think, as you said, thank you for sharing. I've been intimidated. I've faced these challenges. At the same time, we need diversity. We recognize that diversity makes everything better. Having a company where everybody thinks and their experience and their background is exactly the same is detrimental. And so, for another example, as you know, I have a podcast with my daughter, Transgender School, where she's transgender, and she's educating so many people, and so many people are so appreciative of her being willing to help people understand the transgender experience. So she is using that to educate and to support others who may not be as confident about sharing their needs or sharing their name or whatever it may be. So there are so many examples of people who inspire us because they take whatever that is that may be different from whatever is considered the mainstream or the power structure, and using it to make the world a better place, and to serve as that representation, and to serve as an example of what's possible for someone who does actually just plow through and take it and run with it, make the most that they can out of the circumstance they're in.
And we're not saying it's easy. It may not always be easy.
No.
It could be the tougher road to take.
Yes.
However, there's a reason that you are where you are. So you could use that to feel empowered, or you could play small and stagnate and maybe
and that's understandable too. And that's something that even with people at really high levels in the corporate world often have that imposter syndrome, that self-doubt. Everybody does. So we're not denying that. We're just talking about how it is possible, regardless of how intimidated you felt, of how much you doubt yourself, it's possible to keep working, to push yourself, new levels of belief in yourself and belief in your capabilities, and to fight the powers that be by just being you and bringing all of your amazingness to the situations you find yourself in. So hopefully that comes through in the spirit in which it's intended. I know how we intend it, and I really wanted to address that. It's a tricky topic, but I think we do want to sum it up by saying we just encourage you to be proud of yourself, to be confident in the world, to speak up for yourself and others if you want to, right? And to work with those thoughts that may be holding you back, and work to believe in yourself, because we believe in you. That's the bottom line.
I've heard a quote, I think on a TED Talk, and it went something to the effect of, your uniqueness is your superpower. And I loved that. I loved that.
Yes, exactly. Even if other people don't see it that way, if you do, that's a great place to start. Because if you believe it, then you may chip away at what others think or how they may judge you in a less positive way. So Gina, we could talk forever.
Yes, we can.
Are there any questions before we get to where can people find you and all the amazing resources and services that you have available? But before that, is there anything we didn't get to that you wanted to share with the audience?
I would love to share one of my favorite quotes, Bridget. This is by Ralph Waldo Emerson. And I love this. This resonates with me. He said, to be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment. I look at that every day, and I share it all the time, and it resonates with me. That is a darn good accomplishment when you can be yourself.
I love it. That's so true. And that's so you, Gina. I am not surprised that you look at that every day. That kind of explains that that's the energy that you always bring to everything I see when I see you, and in seeing your work in the world. So I would thank you for sharing that
so much.
Yes, I would love for people to know where they can find you, how they can sign up for your newsletter, where they can see your talks. So tell us all about that.
Thank you. And I will send you all the links too, so you can put them in the show notes. Thank you for that. My website is deliberatedoing.com. For anybody who is listening, if you want to chat with me, just a very informal, maybe you want to bounce ideas off me or share your story with me, I always welcome that. Please email me, gina@deliberatedoing.com. That's Gina. And on my website, Bridget mentioned this earlier in the show, I do have webinar replays on all kinds of work topics. I have a couple of COVID videos on there. I've got a career blog for those of you who prefer reading over videos. There is a newsletter sign up. I like to send out approximately once a month a newsletter on a different topic, whatever seems to be the flavor of the most recent stories that are going around. And I also do speaking. Sometimes I go to conferences, sometimes I'll do free webinars, and anybody can just sign up, and they can find those also on my website. So I do have a LinkedIn profile. I would invite people to connect with me on LinkedIn and check out my YouTube page. That's where all my videos are hosted. You could just type in my name or Deliberate Doing and find me there.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Gina. So lots of places where you can find Gina and see her talks and read her wonderful writing. And I love your newsletter. I know every once in a while I respond to it and say, that was so timely and perfect. So it made sense when you said you're really trying to stay with whatever's kind of going on, and people are talking about the hot topics of the day. I really feel that in your newsletter. It's wonderful. And I try to do that in my newsletter as well. If anybody listening isn't on my newsletter list, please go to sampsoncoachingandconsulting.com to sign up for that. And also, I'm proud to say, because Gina does some independent work coaching with us through her company, you'll also find Gina on our team page on the Sampson Coaching and Consulting, which I was so honored that you were up for doing with us and partnering with us wherever
are you kidding
bring
me?
you in.
It's my privilege to be able to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina.
It's been amazing. It's been amazing, Bridget. This whole journey together since the life coach school. It's just out of this world.
It really is. It really is, I believe, a beautiful example of how you just never know where life is going to take you, and you just never know who's going to join you on the path and in what way. And when we stay open and we continue to dedicate ourselves to learning and growing and pushing outside of our comfort zone, the rewards are just tremendous. And that's how I feel about our connection, and absolutely about being certified with the Life Coach School and the wonderful women who we'll be seeing in just a couple of days for our monthly get together and connection. So I'm excited about that.
Thank you so much, Bridget. It
thank
was
you.
Such a pleasure to have this conversation. We could go on for hours.
Yes,
we could.
We really could. So we'll take it. We'll end it here, and we'll say, please check out all of Gina's information. It will be in the show notes and the YouTube description. And remember, if you are a client of mine and you want to coach with Gina, let me know, reach out to me, or you can reach out to Gina directly and we can make that happen. So bye, everybody. We will see you next month.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.